You on? What's up, Jacksonville? Doc Tony. Giving my cats some treats here. They go crazy for these things. All right? It's like crazy. Hey, boys. Okay, listen. Leave me alone for a little bit. Let me do this show, okay? All right, guys. Hey, sit down. All right. What's up, Jacksonville? So listen, what we've been talking about for the last couple shows is everything you need to know about being injured in a car accident. You know, accidents can happen anytime. You never know when an accident's going to happen. So it's important to be prepared. So on the very first show that I did, I talked about your insurance coverage. That's your only opportunity that you're going to have to prepare yourself for the accident before an accident happens. And that's the best preparation. The best thing you can do is be prepared. Because by the time you have an accident and find out that you don't have proper insurance coverage, there's nothing you can do about it at that time. And in the state of Florida, there's no guarantee that anyone's looking after you if you're injured in a car accident. The state of Florida is not, and the person that's caused the accident or the liable person, they're not responsible to look after you. So people, know what your insurance coverage is. If you missed my first show, check it out. Now, on the second show, what we talked about was a common accident that occurs. And why you're stiff and sore after an accident, what that actually means. So what I did is I demonstrated a rear end collision when somebody gets hit from the back. Okay, we're gonna get this spine back out again, all right? So we talked about a whiplash injury, which is the most common type of injury. People getting rear-ended is the most common accident that there is. And that's when the head's going to snap suddenly backwards and then forward. And the reason that people are stiff and sore after an accident is that means they either overstretched, torn, or ruptured their soft tissue. Now your soft tissue is what supports and holds your spine together, whether it's your ligaments, whether it's your muscles, whether it's your intervertebral disc. All of these things, all of these structures can be injured. And every time they're injured, anytime there's a traumatic injury, injuries always heal the same way. And it's important to try to help the body facilitate that healing process to the best of its ability. An example would be is if you cut yourself. You don't have to necessarily, if it's a cut that doesn't require stitches, you don't have to actually, do things for it every day, and it'll heal. But will it heal to the best of its ability? In other words, it's going to heal regardless, but it's going to heal with extra tissue, scar tissue, fibrotic tissue. And this can hinder not only the appearance, but the function of your skin as well. So what you want to do is try to take care of that. It's the same thing inside your body. When you damage that soft tissue, your soft tissue also is going to heal with scar tissue. So you want to make sure that you take care of those injuries. So again, when you get hit from the back, the sudden impact of that force going through your car goes through your body. It snaps your head backwards and forward, overstretching and tearing, and often rupturing the soft tissue. Which one of these cats is doing? Hey, get out of there. These cats are crazy. Okay, go away. This cat wants these treats. So this is what we're going to discuss today. What you need to do to protect yourself now that you've injured that soft tissue. Okay? So I'm going to discuss now the whole healing process. What takes place with your body, how it heals. Okay, so zoom in here, cameraman. All right, so when the neck gets thrown into hyperflexion or hyperextension that you see here, and then it gets thrust into hyperflexion that you see here, you can see here, what it did is it now overstretched and it caused that soft tissue to rupture. And so there's a gap in between that soft tissue. You see that? Now, obviously it cannot stay that way, okay? Another thing I want you to look at is take a look at these muscles. You see how they run in nice straight directions? Beautiful, look at those. Nice longitudinal fibers. The muscles, they don't just go everywhere. They run nice and smooth. They're uniform. Okay, step back out there. So what we have here from this whiplash injury is we have a torn muscle. There's a gap in between that muscle right there. And I want you to understand, you can see how these muscle fibers run very smooth, very uniform, and nice and parallel. They run together. Can you ever see that? Okay, go on, step back here, cameraman. Go ahead, watch out there, Hoochie. You have no idea where your treats are. So now we're going to discuss now, how does that gap in that muscle heal? So you understand that the force that hit that car went through that car, it overstretched, torn, or ruptured your soft tissue. That's why you're feeling stiffness. That's why you're having difficulty with range of motion and turning your head, numbness, tingling, whatever the case may be. You sustain soft tissue injuries that are affecting you neurologically as well, or possibly. Now, how do we fill in that gap? Because a lot of times you'll go to the hospital and a doctor will just say, wear a neck brace and take some anti-inflammatories and it'll just heal itself. Listen, it will heal itself, but when you don't take care of the soft tissue, it's going to heal with more fibrotic tissue. And as you're going to find out, fibrotic tissue is not as functional as your original tissue, so you don't want to allow this to happen. So let's talk about the process, what's occurred. So now you've got that big hole in that muscle right there. Let's look at this. Let's look at these muscles all have to run along together nice and even. But now one section of this muscle was damaged. So let's say we have a sidewalk, and those sidewalks are always built in blocks. Block after block after block. You have like a 4-foot section, 4x2 section of a sidewalk. Now let's say one of those sections was cracked, it was broken. So bad to the point you can no longer wheel a bike over it, or a cart, or a baby carriage, or any of these things. So it's not a functional part of that sidewalk. So what are they gonna do? So the sidewalk was damaged. The muscle, it's damaged. What's the first part? You gotta go in there and you gotta clear out all that old concrete. It's not worth anything anymore. We gotta get rid of that. So you go in there, you clear out the old concrete. In your body on the first few days, what your body's gonna do is gonna bleed, and it's gonna inflame, it's gonna swell, and it's gonna work on cleaning up the damaged muscle that's occurred, okay? And that whole process right there is gonna take a few days. Then what it's gonna start doing is it's gonna start laying down some material that it needs to close that gap. So let's go back to that sidewalk. First thing you gotta do is you gotta clear out that concrete. Then what are you gonna do? You're gonna lay some wood border. You're gonna mark this new concrete border out where you're gonna lay down this new concrete. Then you're gonna come in here and you're gonna pour a bunch of concrete into that area. You can't just leave it like that. So that's the next section of how that soft tissue is gonna heal. The very first thing is gonna bleed and it's gonna swell. The next section is going to regenerate. So what it's gonna do, it's gonna lay down more tissue to fill in that gap of that torn muscle. So that's like the concrete now being put into that section. Now you can't just leave that concrete like that. Sure, it covered the sidewalk from this point to that point, but it's a big mob and it's rough and it's not very functional. You're not gonna be able to use that very well. Okay, so that's this new laid down material. And that takes anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks for your body to complete laying that material. Now, anywhere from 8 weeks to a year, you gotta remold that new tissue that was laid down. What do I mean by remolding it? My neck can turn right, it can turn left. I can move it in all these directions. Remember how I showed you those muscle fibers? Let's take a look again. See these muscle fibers right through here? See how nice and smooth and fluid those muscle fibers run? Come on back here, Danny. So basically when muscles contract, they gotta glide over each other just like this. When you damage it and you have this tissue that's been laid down, it's like they're just not gliding smoothly anymore. So what you need to do is you need to get them to be as functional as the original tissue. So the objective is to get this scar tissue, which is not going to be as strong, it's not as pliable, and it's always tender, to be as functional as your original tissue. So here's the remolding. So we've got this sidewalk. What do we got to do? We got to clear out that concrete. We got to take our little thing. We got to smooth it out, and then we etch the corners. And no matter what, even after that thing is done and we've got it as the best we can, what happens? And a little kid comes over and he puts his name in it, 2017, Tony. No. What happens is you can always tell that that piece of that sidewalk was replaced. It doesn't look like the other sidewalk, it looks different. When you have scar tissue in your body, people, it's not as functional as the original tissue. And that's the big problem, is that it develops what's called residual fibrotic tissue. And fibrotic tissue is not as elastic, it's not as strong, and it's always prone to hypersensitivity. So like take an athlete who damages his hamstring. An athlete that pulls his hamstring. Because all injuries are the same. Whether I pull a hamstring or whether I injure a muscle in my neck. The inflammatory response, the injury response, and what's taking place is identical. It makes no difference. But a lot of people can relate to somebody who's pulled a gastroc, a calf muscle or a hamstring muscle. Man, that's a serious injury. And no matter what, that same hamstring is always prone to go into spasm again or have residual pain. And the reason that is, people, is once this fibrotic tissue, like laying down that concrete, once that new tissue has been laid down into the muscle, again, it's not as functional and it's not as flexible, but it interferes with the receptors that coordinate everything with your brain. So at times that muscle is just always prone to go into spasm. And there's always residual pain because fibrotic tissue, or a good chance of having residual pain, because fibrotic tissue constantly inflames because it's not as functional as the original tissue. So what happens after people have a car accident? The force that hit that car goes through that car, overstretching, tearing, and rupturing the soft tissue. Why is it important to get treatment? Because that scar tissue right there is not going to be as functional. You want to make sure that you're working with healing it to the best of its physiological capabilities. And you can do a lot with that, especially chiropractors. See, when you injure a hamstring, There's lots of things that you can do with that. But when you injure the paraspinal or the paraarticular, the joints around the neck, the muscles that support the joints of the neck, the only profession that can get in there and put motion into those joints is through a chiropractic adjustment, where you break up the adhesions that are forming in those muscles. That's what happens with scar tissues. It forms as adhesions. It's not as pliable. That's why it's so important to see a chiropractor when you've had neck injuries, back injuries, lower back injuries, because it frees up that scar tissue, stimulates joint mechanoreceptors, nociceptors, helps reset that whole pain mechanism. That's why people after they get adjustment feel so much better. But people, regardless, you can never just ignore soft tissue injuries, because again, it's like ignoring laying that big clump of concrete down on that sidewalk. You can't leave it like that. You got to work on it. You got to work on it until you get it nice and smooth, looking just like the sidewalk in front of it and the sidewalk in back of it. Same thing when you damage that muscle. You need to work on it. So the phases of muscle damage, first it's going to bleed. When you have a traumatic injury, it's going to bleed. It's going to swell. It's going to lay down tissue to fill that gap of that torn muscle. Then you need to remold that muscle. You need to work on it to make it flexible, to make it strong, and to build the muscle fibers that are needed to support your neck in all the different ranges of motion. That's why after an accident, I don't advocate people wearing neck braces when they strain muscle. Because then you hold your neck in this one position. You'll see people they don't move, they just hold their neck. When you go to try to move it again, oh man, you can't move that thing at all. Because you understand, at each stage, the healing process is taking place, and some stages are overlapping. So it's real important to start getting motion in there, especially as soon as that inflammatory stage has gone down. Now, in that original inflammatory stage, people, that can actually get worse over the first few days. Then once you enter into that regeneration phase, that's when you can start actively participating in some type of therapy, some type of motion, especially in the remolding phase. That's where it's important to really increase the exercising, the stretching, the things that you're gonna do to make sure that your lifestyle going forward is not gonna be affected. And it's a fact that when people have car accidents, even years after the accident, they're still having pain. And the reason being, people, is the fibrotic tissue. Majority of people that are involved in car accidents are forced to change occupations. They're forced to modify their activities of daily living. So soft tissue injuries, people, are very serious, especially when you neglect taking care of them. So if you're injured in a car accident, people, and you're feeling pain, always get checked out, especially in the state of Florida. Remember, you only have 14 days after being involved in an accident in the state of Florida. So always make sure you're checked out, because you don't want to lose your insurance benefits. And it doesn't matter who you are, the age of the person, everybody that's in that car, that force that hits that car goes through that car, and everyone's susceptible to damage. People, if you know a chiropractor in the area, check out a chiropractor in the area. Go seek treatment after being involved in a car accident, or if you're just having neck pain in general. People have microtraumas throughout their whole life, and chiropractic can help. If you're living in the Jacksonville area, always call the doctor you can trust. That's me, Doc Tony, at 1-888-88-8863. Tune in next week, people, where I'm going to discuss the different types of treatment options that are available to people when they're involved in a car accident, and what happens to people when they end up in a doctor's office or if they called an attorney. It's important to understand when you call an attorney, now you've got two things that are involved when you had a car accident. It's just not a health problem anymore. There's a liability. That means there's money involved. And when the wrong attorneys and the wrong doctors are taking care of you and you're under their care, greedy doctors or greedy attorneys, bad things can happen. So tune in next week, where I'm going to discuss the things that can happen when you're hooked up with a greedy attorney or a greedy doctor. I'm Doc Tony. I appreciate your time. God bless you all, and enjoy your day.